Hey, John, just checking my mic.
Audio, video, look good. You're good to go.
Perfect, thank you.
Good evening, Commissioner Gray.
Good evening, John. Thank you for taking care of all of us.
No problem. Audio, video sound good. You're good to go.
Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioner Duffley.
Good evening, John. I hope you're doing well tonight.
Doing okay, doing okay. Audio, video is good.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioner Brown Bland.
Hi there. Doing all
Audio, video
right?
look good. You are good to go.
Good, good. Let's see if we hear my little sound here.
Ah, yes. Good evening, Nick. Oh, I can hear it.
All
Loud
right.
and clear.
Sounds good.
Good.
Good evening, John.
How you doing today?
Pretty good. I guess
Audio,
I'm
video
working
look good,
today.
sir. You are good to go. Sure. Good evening, Bob. Mr. Kaler, do you hear me? Mr. Kaler, do you hear me?
No. I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me, sir?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
We hear you. This question
I
is
cannot
what
hear.
Can you hear us? We just lost his internet. John, are we going to need to get Mr. Kaler to dial in?
Yes, sir. I am trying to work them right now. Just give me one moment, please.
Okay. those of you who are on the phone line and those of you who are watching us on YouTube right now. We are a bit delayed starting, trying to get one of the representatives of the utilities connected. So just stand by and bear with us for a minute.
Mr. Kaler, are you there?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. You're good to go,
Thank
sir.
you.
All righty.
Okay, sorry.
Right. Mr. Kaler, are we going to have you connected by audio only tonight?
I'm on the iPhone and I can see you.
We're glad you can see us. You're not showing on my screen, so we can proceed, but if you need to intervene, you may have to yell out because I can't. I can see your face now. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sorry.
All right. Thank everyone for patience. And Mitchell, you let us know when we're ready to go, when you're ready to go. All right, see the thumbs up. All right, Madam Court Reporter, if you will open the record, please. And let's all please come to order. My name is Dan Clodfelter, and I am the presiding commissioner at tonight's hearing. Joining me are the following members of the commission. Please raise your hand so folks watching on YouTube can see you when I call your name. We have with us Commission Chair Charlotte Mitchell, Commissioner Tanola Brown Bland, Lyons Gray, Kim Duffley, Jeff Hughes, and Floyd McKissick Jr. We will now call for hearing docket number E-100 sub 165, which is in the matter of the 2020 Biennial Integrated Resource Plan reports and the related 2020 Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard Compliance Plans for Duke Energy Carolinas, Duke Energy Progress, and Virginia Electric and Power Company doing business as Dominion Energy North Carolina. Before we proceed this evening, and as required by the State Government Ethics Act, I will remind members of the commission of our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and inquire at this time as to whether any commissioner has a known conflict of interest with respect to these proceedings. If so, please identify. Madam Court Reporter, please let the record reflect that no conflicts have been identified by any commissioner. North Carolina General Statute, Section 62-110.1C requires the commission to develop, publicize, and keep current an analysis of the long-range needs for electricity in North Carolina. In order to meet this requirement, the commission conducts an annual investigation into the integrated resource plans prepared by each of the principal electric utilities under the commission's jurisdiction. In addition to that review, Commission Rule R8-67B requires electric public utilities to file a renewable energy portfolio standard plan called a REPS compliance plan for short, as part of their annual reports. Integrated Resource Planning, or IRP, in short reference, is intended to identify those electric resource options that can be obtained at the lowest cost to ratepayers, consistent with safe, adequate, and reliable electric service. The utilities' electric integrated resource plans must consider conservation, energy efficiency, load management, as well as supply side alternatives in the selection of the resource portfolio. The Commission does not approve or disapprove the utilities' integrated resource plans. It takes those plans into consideration in its own long-range plan for electricity service in North Carolina, and also in its determination of applications for certificates of public convenience and necessity to conduct new electric generating facilities, and in other proceedings where approval of utility programs or investments is required by the general statutes. On May 1st, 2020, Dominion Energy North Carolina filed its 2020 Integrated Resource Plan and its REPS compliance plan. On September 1st, 2020, Duke Energy Progress and Duke Energy Carolinas filed their 2020 IRPs and 2020 REPS compliance plans. The participation of the public staff as a party in this proceeding is recognized pursuant to General Statute 62-15D. And in addition, the participation of the North Carolina Attorney General's Office is recognized pursuant to his notice of intervention filed under General Statute 6220. The following additional parties petitioned to intervene and have been granted a status as interveners by commission order. They are the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, Vote Solar, the Carolina Clean Energy Business Alliance, NC Warren, Inc., the Center for Biological Diversity, Carolina Industrial Group for Fair Utility Rates, the Carolina Utility Customers Association, the Tech Customers, Broad River Energy, LLC, the City of Asheville and Buncombe County, the City of Charlotte, the Sierra Club, the Natural Resources Defense Council, Electricities of North Carolina, Inc., the North Carolina Eastern Municipal Public Power Agency, and the North Carolina Municipal Power Agency number 1. On February 2nd of this year, the Commission issued an order scheduling a public hearing to be conducted via WebEx on March 16th of this year for the purpose of taking non-expert testimony from public witnesses with respect to the IRPs and the REPS compliance plans. The order stated that members of the public desiring to testify must register in advance of the hearing no later than 5 p.m. on Thursday, March 11th, 2021, by contacting the public staff. The Commission's order also required the 3 utilities to publish notice of this hearing in newspapers having general coverage in their respective North Carolina service territories. Public staff received more than 200 requests to testify at the original scheduled hearing. The Commission was very pleased to have this level of interest, but determined that accommodating such a large number of witnesses via remote technology on a single evening presented logistical and technical challenges that could not be overcome. And therefore, the Commission issued an order on March 12th, stating in part that persons registering to testify for the March 16th hearing date would instead be heard on a series of sessions over several dates in April and in May. On March 26th, the Commission issued an order establishing 6 dates in April and May for the purpose of hearing public witness testimony from the persons who had previously registered with public staff. The Commission directed the public staff to evenly schedule the witnesses across the 6 evenings and to notify each person of the date he or she is to testify. That brings us to tonight, which is the second such hearing, and of the process that we will follow this evening to receive your testimony. Over the past year, the Commission has conducted several public hearings using remote technology. We have learned that such hearings can take longer and can sometimes be more complex than hearings conducted in person in the hearing room in Raleigh. And so in the interest of being able to hear from everyone scheduled to testify this evening, I ask you to respect and to abide by the following procedures. First, the public staff has grouped witnesses and has scheduled each group of witnesses for a specific date. The group scheduled for tonight are the only witnesses the Commission will receive testimony from this evening. Once all the registered witnesses have testified for this evening, the hearing will then recess and the next session will be called at a later date. Second, public witnesses, as they call in, will be on the telephone line. but will not be on the video screen available to us as commissioners or available on YouTube. Anyone, however, who is participating in or observing tonight's hearing can watch the commission and the representatives of the companies and other parties via the YouTube link. The link to the YouTube video is available to you on the commission's website. If you have not found that link, it may be found at www.ncuc.net on the commission's homepage. Public staff will call the witnesses this evening in the order in which they registered to speak. When your name is called, at that point, our meeting technician will unmute your phone line. When you hear 2 beeps on your phone line, that means your line is then unmuted. After that, I will ask you to take an oath of affirmation. We will not be asking witnesses to swear on the Bible because quite obviously we can't make a Bible physically available to you tonight. So you will be asked to take an oath before you make your testimony. After you take the oath, the public staff attorney will ask you a few introductory questions just for the record. And immediately after that, you may proceed to make your statement. You will have 5 minutes to present your testimony. Due to the number of witnesses we have and the requirements of the technology, I do not have the latitude tonight to allow you to go beyond your allowed 5-minute time. Commissioner Brown Bland will be keeping time. And when you hear a ringing noise coming in while you're speaking, that means you have run out of time. So let me suggest to you that if you have something to say that you believe has already been said by an earlier speaker, it may be wise for you to simply refer to that earlier testimony and say you support the earlier speaker's position. That will give you time to make different points or new points that you haven't made or that no one else has made before. If you have more information that you wish the commission to consider than you are able to provide tonight in the allowed time, please remember that you may file a supplemental written statement with the commission clerk and that your written statements will become part of the official record in this proceeding as well. You will be speaking to the commissioners whom you will be able to see via the YouTube link. After your statement is made and you're finished, the commissioners and the attorneys for the parties will be given an opportunity to ask you questions. So please don't hang up your telephone line until I have let you know whether or not any commissioner or party may have a question for you. When you have completed your statement and you've responded to any questions that have been asked of you, your phone line will be muted again and you are free to disconnect your line if you wish to do so and go on about your evening's business. You are welcome to stay on the line. You're welcome to continue to watch on YouTube, but once you have gone back onto mute, please don't try to re-enter the conversation or reinsert yourself in the proceedings. You are encouraged to continue to follow us on YouTube if you'd like to do so. Finally, let me touch on a couple of items that will help avoid problems with technology this evening. If you are using a cell phone, a portable phone, or a smartphone as your telephone link to the hearing, please be sure your device is fully charged or that you can keep it charged during the course of the evening. This hearing could last several hours, and you do not want to have your phone go dead if you are one of the later speakers on tonight's speakers list. If you are watching the hearing on YouTube and you are also connected by telephone as a speaker, please remember to keep your computer audio on mute in order to avoid feedback on the telephone line. If you're using your computer as your audio device to call in to the hearing, please keep your computer audio on mute except when you have been called upon and when you're actually speaking. And last of all, please be sure the volume level on the device you are using tonight is set high enough so that you can be heard by the members of the commission. All right, with those preliminaries out of the way, I will now call upon counsel for the parties to announce their appearances for the record, beginning with the utility companies.
Thank you, Chair Clodfelder, members of the commission. Robert Kaler appearing on behalf of Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you, Mr. Kaler. Mr. Kaler, if you can turn your volume up just a tad, it might be useful. We can hear you, but a little bit more volume. All right, who's next?
Good evening, commissioners. Nick D'Antonio here with McGuire Woods representing Dominion Energy, North Carolina.
All right. Appearing for the Attorney General.
Good evening, North Carolina Utilities Commission. This is Menashe Magarira on behalf of the Attorney General's office.
Good evening, Mr. Magadera. Are there any other intervenors who are appearing tonight through counsel? I don't see anyone else on my screen, so we'll move now to the public staff.
Good evening, Commissioner Clodfelter, Robert Josie for the public staff on behalf of the using and consuming public. I'm here with Lucy Edmondson and Layla Cummings.
All right, good evening. Anyone else joining us late who wishes to make an appearance? If not, let me ask council, are there any preliminary motions or matters that we need to address before we take the first witness?
Not that I'm aware of for Duke.
All right. If not, then, Mr. Josie, I understand you're going to be at bat tonight, so why don't we let you call the first witness, please?
Yes, sir. Our first witness is J. Donald King. I believe he is not on the line, but.
Mr. McCoy, is that correct? Mr. Keene is not on the line?
Yes, sir, he is not.
Mr. Josie, we will move to your second witness.
Okay, the second witness is Jennifer Roberts.
All right, Ms. Roberts, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Thank you. Let's get you sworn in. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. Mr. Josie, you may proceed.
Could you please provide your name, your address, and your electric provider, please?
Jennifer Roberts, 619 Clement Avenue, Charlotte, and my energy provider is Duke Energy Carolinas.
You may give your statement.
First, I want to say thank you so much for allowing public input. I also regretfully announce the speaker before me, J. Donald Keene, has passed away. He was a great advocate for clean energy, and we all mourn his loss in speaking about climate advocacy. I'm Jennifer Roberts. I've been a 4-term county commissioner of Mecklenburg County, including 5 years serving as chair and head of the Environment Committee. I served 1 term as mayor of Charlotte, signed the mayor's climate pledge, and for the past 2.5 years, I've been working with a national nonprofit called Eco America, which works to engage local and national leadership in climate change solutions and advocacy. I have 2 main points to make. The first is to decry the glacial pace for transitioning to clean renewable energy in the IRP. As 13-year-old Ben pointed out last week, none of the scenarios include no gas and no coal by 2035. The second is the unjust energy burden that Duke's rate structure continues to place on our low-income neighbors. In the 1980s, North Carolina had $11 billion weather disasters. But in the past decade, we had 41. The increasing frequency of these disasters is raising costs for taxpayers, insurance rates, property values, and the ability of towns to repair their infrastructure, and not to mention the loss of life and property. There are currently 90 towns that are in fear of having to unincorporate because they can no longer repair their infrastructure that continues to be damaged by repeated weather disasters, flooding, and climate impacts. All of this is to underscore the urgency of climate change. Duke Energy's IRP shows little sense of urgency. In fact, on page 41, it admits it has the ability to move faster to clean energy if forced. Duke's IRP is not a plan for a rapid and complete transition to clean renewable energy. It talks about battery storage being, quote, emergent with limited history and limited scale of deployment. For reference, I point to Florida Power and Light that is currently building the world's largest battery storage facility, 409 megawatts. It will open later this year. And Florida Power and Light will use it to retire 2 gas power plants, save ratepayers $100 million, and Florida Power and Light has only 1 coal plant left, which it will close next year. The second point is failure to alleviate the energy burden. None of the scenarios detail how Duke's plans to deal with the energy burden or to expand existing programs for energy efficiency. The city of Charlotte has done a lot of hand-wringing since our 2014 study that ranked us last, 50 out of 50, in terms of upward economic mobility. This makes it even more painful to see that Duke Energy's low-income customers are disproportionately energy burdened. As reported by EWG this past year, Duke underfunds its own programs designed to help low-income customers pay their bills. And much of the support comes not from the company, but from ratepayers or voluntary donations. As mentioned in other testimony, 44% of households in Duke Energy service territory are cost burdened. I also know we have 75,000 households that go to Crisis Assistance Ministry every year to get short-term loans to pay their utility bills. This IRP does little to change that. The slow transition to renewables also contributes to environmental racism. Black, Indigenous, and people of color, or BIPOC, and low-income communities suffer the most from climate impacts, warming cities, and pollution. There are known health impacts from coal plants, coal ash ponds, and other toxins that have been located near BIPOC communities. Black Americans are 3 times as likely to die from asthma as whites. Neighborhoods that were redlined can be as much as 10 to 15 degrees hotter in the summer. These are the same households who cannot afford to turn their air conditioning on high. I've walked neighborhoods on our west side during campaigns. I can feel the heat in our low-income neighbors' homes when I'm invited inside. Research shows it's harder for children to learn when it is hot, incidents of violence and aggression increase, and of course, people actually die from too much heat. Duke's continued contribution to global warming and its unjust rate structure are both causing harm to BIPOC communities. Justice is woven into every issue in our country today. Climate and environmental justice are in your hands. I implore the Commission to tell Duke Energy to adjust its energy mix faster and its rate structure, to retire all fossil fuel infrastructure as soon as possible, and to show that it cares about improving the health and lives and access to opportunity for our BIPOC neighbors. Thank you so much for giving me this time tonight.
I'm sorry, the space bar sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see if there are any questions for Ms. Roberts from commissioners or from council.
None from Duke.
All right, hearing none. Ms. Roberts, thank you for being with us this evening, and you're free to stay or go as you please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Cloudfelter. Neighbors.
Mr. Josie, next witness.
Sir. Our next witness is Gail Solomon.
Ms. Solomon, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Hi, we can hear you fine. Let's get you sworn, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Josie?
Can you please state your name, address, and electricity service provider?
My name is Gail Solomon. My address is 23 Red Maple Drive, Weaverville, North Carolina, and my provider is Duke Energy.
Is it Duke Energy Carolinas or Progress?
I'm outside of Asheville. I don't know. My husband has I can find that out and come back to you.
That's okay. Please give your statement.
Thank you. Duke Energy's proposed 15-year plan fails to address our society's critical need to move away from fossil fuels. I believe that Duke is playing bait and switch with the agreement it reached years ago when it agreed to build just 2 frac gas plants and agreed to close down the Asheville coal plant. Duke's proposed plan endangers the welfare of not just the population of western North Carolina, but also of the very planet itself. Duke's proposal to build up to 13 frac gas plants and to continue burning coal until 2049 is a gross betrayal of the public trust. Moreover, developing renewable power sources is far more affordable than Duke's inaccurate numbers suggest. Duke is deliberately misleading the public on an issue of grave importance to all of us. Before Duke dares to build new generation sources, I demand that it show me that it is doing everything possible first to maximize every energy efficiency option. Duke's plan will only increase the cost ratepayers like me will incur. How dare Duke continue investing in higher cost fossil fuel technologies before doing its best to explore other options? Once again, Duke is putting its hand in my pocket. I want Duke to tell us why its IRP is extending the use of coal instead of speeding up the retirement of all coal plants. Duke should be thinking about closing half of its coal fleet by 2025 and achieving coal-free energy by 2030. If Duke was truly public-spirited, it would support transition plans for its coal plant communities. If Duke thought about this as hard as it thinks about fossil fuel, I am sure that Duke would come up with something better. Surely Duke scientists have explained to the company's decision makers that gas combustion releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Moreover, I am certain that Duke knows that fracking jettisons tons of the pollutant methane into the atmosphere. Yet North Carolina and Duke have stated their climate goals. How can Duke support the climate goals it has publicly stated and at the same time push for more fracking, more methane, and more carbon dioxide? Duke is speaking out of both sides of its mouth and hoping that the public won't notice. Well, I have news for Duke. We notice. Here's a thought to Duke. Why not consider solar? Is that such an earth-shaking idea? Surely it's less earth-shaking than fracking, which actually causes the earth to shake. Duke must be aware of the proven connection between fracking and earthquakes, and Duke must know that the location of these fracking plants in the poorer communities, in the communities of color, unfairly takes away their environmental rights. I urge the company to go solar. Not only is solar the cleanest energy source, but it is also the most cost-effective. Duke must know that North Carolina could actually boost its renewable energy by 2035 to 66%, while simultaneously driving ratepayer costs down. So I asked Duke, knowing all this, what stands in its way from doing the right thing? What stands in its way from ensuring a better future for all of us in Western North Carolina? What stands in its way from giving our children a planet to call home when they grow up? It all adds up to just one answer, one that Duke must assuredly know. I urge Duke to please do the math, and this time do it correctly, and then do the work to make it happen. Duke is in the position to change things for the better for all of us. I am begging them not to blow it. Please, I will never forgive them. Neither will all of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Solomon. Are there any questions for Ms. Solomon from representatives of the parties or the commissioners? If not, Ms. Solomon, thank you very much for participating in the hearing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Josie?
Thank you. I believe callers 4 and 5 on our list are not online, so we'll move to caller 6, Jerome Wagner.
All right, Mr. Jerome Wagner, can you hear me?
Yes. Can I be heard now? May I be?
Yes, you
am
can.
I heard? Great. Thank you.
Yes, you are. So let's get you sworn in. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Josie, you may proceed.
Can you please state your name, address, and electricity service provider, please?
Yes. My name is Jerome Wagner. I reside at 110 Summer Lake Drive Southwest in Concord, North Carolina. My electric provider is the City of Concord, but I do speak on behalf of people who are customers of Duke Energy Carolinas.
Right. Thank you. Please give your statement.
Thank you very much. I am the lead organizer for 350 Charlotte. We are a grassroots volunteer group focused on climate change mitigation and climate justice. My comments here will focus on Duke Energy's IRPs. 350 Charlotte has submitted a written comment to Utilities Commission docket already. To summarize those comments, we believe that all new fossil fuel related construction must stop immediately, that we maximize the deployment of renewables now, and that R&D must be focused on long-term storage. In terms of the pathways presented by Duke, we feel that pathway D, 70% CO2 reduction high wind, is the necessary starting point. Only this pathway meets the governor's stated CO2 reduction requirements through the use of currently available technology. That summary addresses 350's analysis. I'll follow with some personal comments. I've been a climate activist for 1 decade now. Looking at the current situation and looking ahead, it is obvious to me that intellectual attempts to solve the climate crisis have been woefully ineffective. The studies of nature, the published reports, the policy recommendations, the further studies, the COP meetings have gotten us nowhere. So rather than stick to logical and intellectual points, I'm going to my emotions. My emotive words are appalled and scared. I am appalled that by the insignificant progress made by us, despite focused study and discussion of global climate change. The only thing proven by decades of conversation here is that we as humans are incapable of acting to our collective benefit. I am appalled. I'm scared. In my view, the future is bleak to those with enough courage to actually contemplate it. What does the future hold as climate migration pushes people from South Central America to the more temperate United States? What does the future hold as traditional water supplies dry up, imperiling all? What does the future hold as food systems break down, surpluses are eaten through, and famine strikes pervasively? What does the future hold as political unrest breaks out all around us? The prospect is truly dystopian, especially for my grandsons, Carson, Cooper, Callahan, and Lincoln, who will be in their mid-30s in 2050. I am scared. Is hope still warranted? I assert that there is hope in the process and work done by the Utilities Commission. It is bodies like you that are steering our collective energy future. Yours is the most important job at this time, weighing between monopoly corporate power, political expediency, and true progress. No new gas, stop coal, max renewables now. Thank you and good evening. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Let's see, do any of the parties, representatives, or commissioners have questions for Mr. Wagner? If not, thank you, Mr. Wagner, for participating in the hearing this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. Mr. Josie, your next witness, please.
Yes, callers 7 and 8 on our list are not online, so we're going to move to caller number 9.
Okay.
Harvey.
That would be Harvey Richmond. Mr. Richmond,
Yes,
can you hear me?
Harvey.
Mr. Richmond?
Can you hear me?
You're a little bit faint. Try again. Can we, Mr. Richmond?
Yeah. Well,
Your audio seems to be cutting in and out a little bit. Give it another try. Mr. McCoy, can you help Mr. Richmond?
No, sir. I mean, he is connected. I don't know why he can't hear him. We just heard him just very briefly. I'm not too sure what's going on.
I tell you what, let's do. Mr. Richmond, if you can hear me, we're going to, just for the moment, skip over you. We know you're there on the phone line. We're going to skip you for a minute and see if you can do a little work on that phone line, and we'll come back to you. All right, Mr. Josie, let's take the next witness then, please.
Caller number 10 is not available, so we're going to go to 11, Jane Barnett.
All right, Ms. Barnett, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Available, so we're going to go to 11.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Barnett, we can hear you.
All right, thank you.
Great, let's get you sworn. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Josie, proceed.
Yes, can you
Thank
please
you. I'm
state-
Jane Barnett. I live in Moore County. I'm at 900 River Road in Robbins, North Carolina, and my provider is Randolph Electric membership.
Ms. Barnett, very efficient. You put
Thank
Mr.
you.
Josie out of a job. Please proceed with your statement.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a retired math teacher, grandmother of 6, and now a great-grandmother. And when I consider the young families of my grandchildren and former students and the promising life of little 8-month-old Hayes, I want to believe in their optimism in planning for their futures. However, I've been studying about what a mindless continuation of current behaviors looks like, and I know the prospects are grim. The climate is already changing. We have catastrophic hurricanes, flooding, and destroying communities right around us as never before. And more subtle effects of warmer temperatures and warming and rising seas are already noticeable. I took the climate reality leadership training and study with the Climate Crisis Working Group of Moore County, and the urgency of the mission has become apparent to me. So I have examined the Duke Energy IRP to see if they are serious about using their vast power to make a difference, and it is apparent that they are not. Cities such as Charlotte and Raleigh find the base case option falls far short in meeting their energy goals. This IRP should be redone. Electricity production by burning coal and natural gas is the largest single source of greenhouse gases, 25% in some areas, according to the Drawdown Project. And the methane and CO2 emissions from the extraction and refining of fuels for this purpose are considerable. With a climate crisis so imminent, every step taken and plan made must work to reduce carbon emissions 70% by 2030 and 100% by 2050. The North Carolina Energy Plan is a roadmap for this. The finances of the Duke monopoly in the state are key. Assuming that the lowest hanging fruit could bring the emissions down enough by 2030 by retiring coal and gas plants and adding renewables with the sun and wind so abundant here, investments are needed to accomplish that. Other examples are increasing storage capacity, urging conservation, and building community solar, which could make clean energy available to a larger population. However, in addition, many innovations that will be needed for the harder lifts between 2030 and 2050 have not been developed, many not even invented yet. Investments made this decade to bring these into future reality should also be substantial. Public and private partnerships are needed for that research and development immediately, along with a willingness to make the adjustments. All of this is to say building 9 new gas-powered plants in this crucial period is irrational. While these plants should soon be retired as obsolete, Duke's customers would be burdened by paying for them for decades longer. This would be on top of the millions Duke spends lobbying and contributing to state legislators, and Duke's substantial costs of lawsuits over coal ash damages and unwanted pipelines. None of the spending improves services to the customers nor addresses the climate crisis. Then Duke and PUC pass on rising costs, overwhelming customers, many of whom had power cut off during the pandemic. That's another reason to reduce spending that is not productive. With the right motivation, needed investment could address the infrastructure, technology, and innovation the future calls for and create valuable new jobs.
Ms. Barnett, you've come to a stopping point. Are you concluded?
I am complete.
Thank you very much. Let's see, are there any questions for Ms. Barnett? Barnett, you've come to a stopping point. Are you concluded?
I am complete.
Ms. Barnett, we were getting some feedback on your phone line there. I think that was just a repetition, but no one seems to have any questions for you. So thank you for coming out this evening and participating in the hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy, let's go back to Mr. Richmond, caller number 9, and see, have we been able to get him connected. Mr. Richmond?
Can you hear me?
You're very, very faint. Try again.
Can you hear me? I've got it on max volume.
I can hear you now. So, Mr. Josie, let's go back to Mr. Richmond and we'll swear in Mr. Richmond, please. Mr. Richmond, do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you will give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you. Mr. Josie?
Could you please state your name, address, and electric provider, please?
Harvey Richmond, 200 Ivy Green Chase Court in Apex. And Apex provides the retail energy, though it's wholesale is Duke, providing it through Apex, the municipality.
Please give your statement.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address the Utility Commission and public staff this evening. I'm a retired employee of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency who over 31 years worked on the development and review of national ambient air quality standards. I'm an active member of the Sierra Club and other environmental and energy organizations, but the comments I am making today are my own. While I'm not a direct customer of Duke Energy, I reside in Apex, which provides my family energy through a municipal co-op. However, the town of Apex gets its energy from Duke Energy. In the last few years, the town of Apex and Wake County Board of Commissioners, along with many other towns, cities, and counties, have adopted resolutions and plans that set goals for transitioning to 100% clean energy. My town in Wake County, where I live, cannot reach these ambitious goals without Duke Energy adopting a more aggressive plans to replace its declining coal-fired power plants. In order to meet state and local greenhouse gas emission goals, Duke Energy must replace retired coal-fired power plants with clean energy and must promote more comprehensive energy conservation programs. Despite ads on TV and radio paid for by Duke Energy in the natural gas industry, promoting the use of more fracked gas, scientific experts have raised serious concerns about the leakage of methane from the wellhead and from the transmission process to deliver natural gas. As it is widely accepted, methane emissions pose a serious threat to our climate. The climate crisis is real, impacting us more each year with devastating storms, floods, wildfires, sea level rise, droughts, etc. Duke Energy's IRP leans toward the addition of more gas-fired power plants instead of building more solar and wind energy, building more battery storage capacity, and promoting energy conservation. Duke Energy's IRP is not in the public interest. I urge you to declare that the current IRP is unreasonable and does not provide an adequate basis for future decisions on adding future power plants. The Commission should send the current IRP back to Duke Energy with marching orders to develop a plan that is consistent with North Carolina's Clean Energy Plan and Duke Energy's own long-range goal of reaching carbon neutrality by 2050. Duke Energy needs to lead in promoting more clean energy, not lag far behind. I also call on the Utility Commission to issue an order that requires Duke to retire all of its coal-fired plants by 2030. By closing all of its plants by 2030, customers will save billions while providing clean air and water for all North Carolinians. Finally, I urge the Utilities Commission to encourage the Environmental Management Commission to support North Carolina joining the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, known as RGGI. RGGI is a collaboration of 10 Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states that places a declining limit and cost on carbon emissions from the power sector. It offers a flexible framework to reduce greenhouse gas emissions at a lower cost. Virginia is the latest state to join RGGI. A study released in February by the Nicholas Institute for Environmental Policy Solutions and the UNC Center for Climate, Energy, Environment, and Economics shows that RGGI, combined with other policies such as accelerating coal retirements, can improve the cost effectiveness of reducing carbon pollution by creating additional savings for ratepayers while guaranteeing that the state will achieve its pollution reduction targets. In closing, I again urge the Utility Commission to find that Duke Energy's IRP is not reasonable. Other states in the Southeast have recently rejected IRPs, including South Carolina, and on February 1st of this year, Virginia rejected Dominion Energy's IRP. I will send my written statement and some additional, which has links to articles about both of those, both the Virginia and South Carolina rejection. And that's the conclusion of my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond. Are there any questions for Mr. Richmond? All right, Mr. Richmond, thank you again for your testimony this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Josie, that moves us then back to witness number 12, I believe, right?
Yes, sir. Dr. Russell Outcalt.
Hey, Dr. Alcott?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you? Great, we can hear you. So let's get you sworn. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Great.
Could you please state your name, address, and electric provider, please?
Yes, my name is Russell Outcalt. I reside at 213 Marsh Landing Drive in Holly Springs, North Carolina, and my provider is Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you. You may provide your statement.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to thank the Commission for allowing me to speak tonight. I am an active member and sit on the board of the Interfaith Creation Care of the Triangle, an interfaith group fighting climate change. But again, I speak for myself tonight and not ICCT. I'm a retired chemist, and I've been aware of the phenomenon of global warming caused by greenhouse gases for over 30 years through the scientific literature. When I first became aware of it, I was absolutely convinced that our leaders would act to prevent potentially catastrophic effects of global warming from greenhouse gases, but unfortunately, that has not taken place, and today we stand at the precipice of catastrophe. The UN IPCC tells us that we have 10 years from today to seriously turn down the curve of greenhouse gas emission global warming, or our kids will face a hellish future. The energy sector is a leading emitter of greenhouse gases, so Duke and the Commission must now take their responsibilities seriously to act for the sake of our children and grandchildren. Unfortunately, this IRP doesn't reflect any urgency in that regard. There's too much burning of fossil fuels for too long, and short shrift is given to the potential for renewable energy and storage. Duke needs to align their plans with Governor Cooper's Clean Energy Plan and the recommendations of the UN IPCC. So I'm going to keep it short tonight, but I want to leave you with a metaphor based on science, but I think one we can all understand for the situation that we face. Every one of us has driven our car into a parking lot and rolled up the windows in the summertime. And we all know it gets hot. That heating is due to the greenhouse effect, exactly the same thing as is going on in our atmosphere caused by greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane. But we also know if you sit in your car, it doesn't get hot right away. It takes a little bit of time. And that's the phase we're in on planet Earth right now. We have rolled up the windows on our planetary car and it's starting to heat. And unfortunately, we're now also in the process of walking away from our children after we've locked them in that car. That is just unacceptable. We have got to act, and act urgently, to turn down and roll down those windows before it's too late. And I'm afraid this IRP doesn't do that. And that's all I want to say tonight, and I thank you for this time.
Thank you, Dr. Alcalt. Are there questions from commissioners or the parties? All right, Dr. Alcalt, thank you for being with us this evening. You're free to go or stay. We appreciate your coming.
Thank you.
Josie?
Yes, caller 13 is not online, so we're going to move to caller 14, Donna Russell Doran.
No, we're getting some interference on your line.
Ah, okay. Let's see if I can. Does that help at all?
Commissioner, I muted her. Do you want me to unmute her?
What do you think might be happening, John?
It sounds like some kind of interference. I'm not too sure. Maybe a couple of different phones on. It could be a variety of things. Unfortunately, we can't understand what she's saying.
Yeah.
Maybe we make an announcement that we come back to her.
Let's do that, Mr. I don't know whether it's Duran or Doran.
She should call back in and reestablish a new connection.
I agree.
That's a good suggestion. Ms. Duran, if you can hear me, would you please hang up your phone and try to call back in a second time? We will be able to recognize your phone number, so we won't lose you. Just try to hang up and call back in, and let's see if we can reestablish the call. If you're calling from a cordless phone or a cell phone and you have a way to get to an old-fashioned telephone that has a cord on it, that might solve the problem. So we're gonna move on for a minute, but we're gonna come back and see if we can reconnect with you, okay? Hope you can hear me. Mr. Josie, let's move to the next witness for now.
Okay. The next witness is Hank Elkins.
All right, Mr. Elkins, let's check your phone connection.
Good evening. I'm Henry Elkins.
We can hear you. Let's get you sworn then. Mr. Elkins, do you hold a second, Mr. Elkins. Mr. Elkins, hold a second. I got to get you sworn in. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you will give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Now you can tell us where you live and who your energy provider is.
I live at 750 Weaverderry Road in Chapel Hill, and my energy provider is Duke Energy Carolinas.
All right, you can provide your statement now.
Hello?
Go ahead, Mr. Elkins.
Well, thank you for the opportunity of testifying. I'd like to talk about human costs, because for coal miners in the hills of Appalachia, death comes slowly. Breathing gets harder. Scar tissue blocks the oxygen. The inhaling of coal and silica dust produces the progressive, the debilitating, and the incurable disease of black lung. And as a coal miner explained, it's almost like a sensation that you're drowning on dry land, especially when it progresses. You really never can catch enough breath. And over time, it gets worse and worse. And so you're sort of grasping for air. And even at a seated position, not moving, not exercising, you just can't get enough oxygen. Not enough oxygen into your blood. And then it goes downhill until your body physically just can no longer survive with that little amount of oxygen, and you die. This is from a personal interview with a coal miner in southern Appalachia. There are two ways to stop black lung disease, and the first is simply to stop breathing the coal dust. It is possible to prevent miners from breathing coal dust, but the operators have consistently demonstrated that they will not do that. They seem to prefer profits over prevention. They can just hang ventilation curtains, but only on the 4 days during the year that the inspectors arrive. What about devices that measure coal dust over the year? No problem. Just stash a coal dust measuring device in a lunchbox, and the results will mimic the fresh air of the Alaskan wilderness. How about individual respirators? Great in theory, but faulty respirators have forced the 3M company to pay $67.5 million to Kentucky miners because of faulty respirators. The second method, and the best method to stop black lung disease, is simply to stop mining Appalachian coal, to stop burning coal, and to stop buying coal. Duke Energy burns a lot of coal. Duke Energy reports that in 2019, coal constituted 26% of their energy sources. And every time we in North Carolina turn on the lights, every time we use Duke's energy, we are indirectly participating in the mining of coal. We are partners with the mine operators. We help fund, indirectly, the slow death of coal miners. Yes, they could go to get inspections, they could go get tests, but few do because they're afraid they'll lose their jobs. And yes, Duke Energy is reducing coal use gradually. As the IRP suggests, but shutting down coal generation now means writing off huge past investments. Those costs are not easy to swallow. But let's be clear. For the coal miners who are dying now, gradually is too late. Every breath of coal dust a miner takes now brings him closer to death. Gradual reduction of coal is not good enough. Accelerating, better. We need to say no to Duke Energy coal now, not 10 years from now, and not 28 years from now in 2049. Thank you for the opportunity of testifying.
Thank you, Mr. Elkins. Are there questions for Mr. Elkins from anyone? If not, Mr. Elkins, again, thank you for being with us this evening. We appreciate it.
You are welcome.
Mr. Josie and Mr. McCoy, have we been able to reconnect with Mr. Rand?
I believe so.
Mr. Rand,
Back on
can
the
you hear
line.
me?
Yeah,
I can
can
hear
you
you
hear
this.
me?
I can hear you this time. Yes, that's much, much better. Thank you. So
good.
let's get you sworn in, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm the testimony you will give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Mr. Josie?
Yes. Could you please provide your name, address, and electric service provider?
Yes, my name is Donna Russell Doran. I currently live at 914 Haddon Hall Drive in Apex, North Carolina. I just recently bought a condo and I'm moving to 105 Chatham Lane in Chatham Walk Lane in Cary, North Carolina. My provider is Duke Energy.
All right. Thank you. You can provide your statement.
Well, I want to say first, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this critically important issue. And as a grandmother, I have a major stake in climate change work. My interest in the environment was sparked by my early career in lead poisoning research and learning the impact that these early environmental hazards had on us all. Lead in paint, lead in gasoline, lead in the air impacted the health of children in particular, impairing brain function, lowering the IQs of children, and often tragically resulting in severe mental retardation. I learned early on that the cost of environmental hazards to individuals, families, and society is immeasurable. Most lead poisoning has been mitigated through education, testing, and regulatory measures, but in the end, it also required changes by major corporations. They're removing lead from profitable products and finding better products. And that, to me, is the link to the climate change issues we're dealing with right now. Unfortunately, lessons learned by industry in lead poisoning control have not been adequately applied to climate change. So here we are, nearly 50 years later, dealing with the impact of deferred maintenance on our Earth. Technology has advanced and the science on climate change is conclusive. We need to move away from fossil fuels. We have the knowledge and the tools, and we need to act now. The energy sector is the second leading emitter of greenhouse gases, and Duke Energy is a massive corporation with significant resources at its disposal. Certainly, individuals can and have made a difference. Many of us compost, drive hybrid vehicles, and encourage others to choose sustainable practices. And I hope that helps. I'm sure it does move the needle a little bit. But Duke has the ability to make a massive impact on climate change. It's time for it to do its part. Unfortunately, the current plan reminds me of work that my middle school grandsons are often guilty of, doing the minimum to get by. Where is the push for renewable energy and storage? Where is the significant move away from fossil fuels? Where is the alignment with Governor Cooper's clean energy plan? This IRP has what my family calls a problem with soul, S-O-U-L, as in sense of urgency lacking. This is indeed an urgent issue. So to Duke Energy and to this commission, I say use your power and do the right thing now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Doran. We're glad you were able to reconnect with us and make your statement. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Doran? Again, thank you for testifying this evening, Ms. Doran.
Thank you.
Mr. Josie?
Yes, I believe the next caller is Jack Parker.
Jack Parker dropped off.
All right, then we'll move to caller 17, Evie Horton.
All right, Ms. Horton, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Let's give you the oath, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
To the best of my ability.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Josie. Go ahead.
Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider?
Yes. My name is Evie Horton. I live at 255 Barnard Avenue, Asheville, North Carolina. And my energy provider is Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you. You can provide your statement.
Okay. Thank you to the North Carolina Utilities Commission for allowing our voices to be heard regarding our energy consumption. My family and I have lived in North Carolina for 6 years and have been Duke Energy customers ever since. I've always had a deep connection with my surrounding natural environment. From growing up in a small town in Ohio, catching frogs and searching for salamanders, to hiking the vast Blue Ridge Mountains in western North Carolina, nature has never failed to captivate me and provide me with a sense of belonging. For in nature, I feel the most safe, the most accepted, and the most human. With the threat of climate change looming over our present and future, nature now seems more fleeting instead of this constant entity that I had always envisioned. We, as a species, have made it significantly more difficult for other species to survive on this planet due to many issues such as our constant destruction of the atmosphere through the release of greenhouse gases. Duke Energy's 15-year plan will cause far more harm to our environment and community than good. Duke would rather charge customers more money to build and consume fracked gas-burning power plants instead of investing time into developing cheaper, more sustainable renewable energy sources. While natural gas may seem like a good solution in the short term, it has and will continue to destroy the environment as well as take money from people. Climate experts have expressed that Duke should not build any gas-burning power plants, while instead Duke is planning to build 59. Renewable energy will create more jobs, allow more people to not have such a financial burden, and help save our natural environment, which is declining at an alarming rate. If Duke Energy cares about the communities and people across the Carolinas, as it claims to do, it will revise this plan and focus on renewable energy. This land is home to millions of people, species, and stories. By investing in renewable energy, Duke will protect our home, our land, and our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Horton. Are there questions for Ms. Horton this evening from anyone? If not, again, Ms. Horton, thank you for participating in this evening's hearing. Mr.
Thank
Josie?
you.
The next witness, Mr. Josie?
Ileana Franklin.
Okay, Ms. Franklin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, we can hear you fine. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Great, thank you. Mr. Josie?
Yes. Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider?
My name is Eliana Franklin. My address is 2500 University Heights, Asheville, North Carolina. And I know that my provider is Duke Energy. I live on campus at the University of North Carolina at Asheville, so I do not have the specific energy provider.
That's okay. You can provide your statement now.
Okay, thank you for taking the time to hear our comments and providing the chance for us to share our concerns. Duke Energy's current plan is important to me because it does not take the rapid, decisive action that is needed to combat climate change. Climate change is a crisis that is quickly growing worse and more devastating for our planet and our people. It has led to terrible storms and hurricanes which have affected North Carolina's coast time and again. In order to stop climate change, we must scale back the use of fracked gas power plants, not increase them. We must retire coal plants and replace them with renewable energy sources. I work as a tutor and I am a former child care worker. I have a vision of a sustainable, healthy, green future for the children I work with rather than a dark and deadly one. I do not want them to grow up under the worsening effects of climate change. I wish for my students to experience and witness a clean environment so they do not have to live in fear of mass storms, pollution, and wildfires. All people deserve a livable future. Duke Energy has the perfect opportunity to create that future for the students I work with, the future I have hoped for. If Duke replaced gas with solar, they could create more jobs and help combat the climate crisis. I believe that 10 years from now, we will find ourselves in a better, more healthy, and sustainable environment. Duke has the chance to be a part of that change, so I urge them to do what is right. And thank you for hearing my statement.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. We appreciate your statement this evening. Are there questions for Ms. Franklin? If not, again, thank you very much for participating in the hearing this evening. Mr.
Thank
Josie,
you.
next witness.
Yes, James Smith.
Mr. Smith, are you there?
Here.
Great.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you are about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Mr. Josie, proceed.
Yes. Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider?
Yes, my name is James Smith. I live at 20 West Knox Street in Durham, North Carolina. And my provider is Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you. You may give your statement.
Thanks. So thank you for having me today. I'm sure you've heard many stories on this hearing and past about the reasons why this plan should be significantly amended. For today, not just to speak on the moral imperative that climate change imposes on our energy infrastructure, but as a young person who is alarmed by the urgency required to tackle the climate crisis. And I believe that this dichotomy between clean energy and traditional fossil fuel energy sources provides a real business opportunity through proactive climate action, not just for Duke Energy, but for other energy providers around the country. Major financial institutions such as BlackRock and MSCI are increasingly taking into account climate change in their portfolios, and climate risks such as fossil fuel infrastructure are being institutionally denounced. I would like to invite you to consider both the global and local ramifications of this plan as it currently stands. What communities would be affected by plants that you plan to build? If I had to guess, these communities would be low-income communities of color, as they have been in the past. Additionally, what message do you as a company want to send to the world, including your investors, when you knowingly go against public interest to profit in the short term? The consequences of these decisions could have significant material impacts against your company in the future. And those might not be tangible now, but they will become ever more apparent as the mainstream investor community starts to really understand the risks that climate change poses. I understand why you feel that your plan to bolster fossil fuel infrastructure across North Carolina is the right thing to do in the short term, but perhaps you feel that Duke Energy is so entrenched in the way that energy has been traditionally produced that you can't propose another option. That's why I want to invite you to genuinely listen to the concerns of the people on this call. Your decisions will have untold impacts, again, disproportionately impacting disadvantaged communities, and these impacts can be mitigated by considering a more comprehensive analysis that goes just beyond the cost associated with short-term decisions. Please act as a leader today so that others will be able to have a voice in the future. To the Commission, consider not just that the short-term economics of this plan may be attractive, but the fact that you are voting for a plan that puts your children and grandchildren.
Mr. Smith, we've lost your audio connection. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You're back now again. We lost you when you were talking about the effects on children.
Okay. So like I said, this plan puts children and grandchildren at risk. And this is where the business renewable energy infrastructure shines. Proactive climate action now.
Mr. Smith, your audio is breaking up and the court reporter can't
Okay.
hear you.
Sorry about that. That's close enough to the end, but think about the children. That's my main point.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm sorry your audio was breaking up and the court reporter couldn't hear you. Are there any questions for Mr. Smith? And again, thank you, sir, for joining us for the hearing this evening and participating. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Josie, who's next?
Yes, Eliza Stokes.
All right, Ms. Stokes, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
You're loud and clear. Do you
All right.
solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Mr. Josie.
Yes. Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider?
Yeah, my name is Eliza Stokes. My address is 408 Shepherd Branch Road, Weaverville, North Carolina. And my energy provider is Duke Energy Progress.
All right, thank you. You may give your statement.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for letting me speak today. My name is Eliza Stokes, and I am the energy organizer at Mountain True, the organization I'm speaking on behalf of today. We're an environmental organization with over 15,000 supporters based in Western North Carolina. In my position, I work to find solutions that decision makers can make at the local, regional, and statewide levels to take action on the climate crisis and ensure that my generation inherits a just and livable planet. In this work, it's clear to me that there's only so much we can do on climate at the local and regional levels without strong action from decision makers like the folks at Duke Energy and the NC Utilities Commission. I'm speaking today to ask your body to require massive changes to Duke's proposed IRP for the sake of the climate, biodiversity, and public health in our state. The climate crisis is already here in North Carolina, and it's clearly already costing us. From increasingly destructive storms like Hurricanes Maria and Florence to historic wildfires and overflowing sewage infrastructure along the French Broad River due to intensifying rainfall. A few years ago, a North Carolina Department of Transportation official shared with me that between 2004 and 2016, NCDOT spent an average of $66 million per year on climate-related road repairs. In 2017, that number rose to $222 million, and in 2018, it rose to over $300 million, causing DOT to put much-needed infrastructure improvement projects all over the state on hold to pay for climate-related repairs. These numbers should astound us all. We're already paying for the disastrous effects of only 1 degree Celsius of global warming, and the cost of climate change in our state will only get much higher if we stay on a fossil fuel path like the one laid out in Duke's proposed IRP. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has been very clear that we must reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40 to 60% by 2030 to avert far more devastating impacts of climate change than the ones we're already seeing. 2030 is in only 9 years. That means the next decade is the absolute most important one in the fight against climate change, and that we simply cannot afford to continue business as usual by bringing on any more gas plants in North Carolina. I also would ask you not to buy into the false dichotomy between transitioning to renewable energy and increasing bills for customers. It will certainly be far more costly for customers to be locked into paying for gas plants for decades after they're profitable than to make the transition to affordable renewable energy now. Your commission has the power to make history by stepping in and requiring an integrated resource plan that moves North Carolina to a renewable, affordable, and equitable energy future. I urge you to make that choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stokes. Let's see if there are any questions for you this evening. And I'm not seeing any. So again, thank you for coming and making your statement this evening. We appreciate it. Mr. Josie, who will be our next witness?
Yes, it's Gus Purcell.
All right, Mr. Purcell, are you there?
Yes, this is Gus Presley.
Presley, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Presley, let's give you the oath. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you, Mr. Josie.
Yes. Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider?
My name is Gus Presley. I live at 1023 Feldspar Lane in Louisville, North Carolina, and Duke Energy Carolinas is my service provider.
All right. Thank you. You may give your statement.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this opportunity. You have an opportunity to reduce untold human suffering in the future from stronger and more frequent storms, flooding, rain, wildfires, tornadoes, and worse. I'm sure you've seen these on TV, but there is a deeper story to be told. And first, I want to flash back almost 20 years to the World Trade Center on 9/11, where I'm a survivor, having been rescued by brave firefighters. But on that day, I lost 85 coworkers, and the families still suffer today from that tragedy. And I saw that kind of suffering in North Carolina. And as an example, I want to talk about Hurricane Florence, which hit in September 2018, wreaking havoc on over 14,500 homes and the lives of thousands of North Carolinians. My church quickly responded to help with the cleanup and rebuilding as many homes as we could. The suffering and damage we witnessed on the first trip shocked us so much so that we made bi-monthly work trips over the period of 2 years until COVID-19 shut us down. Even now, there are still hundreds of families unable to reoccupy their homes. These disasters are blows to people who were already experiencing other tragedies in their lives. We cleaned up and repaired the homes of a mother caring for her seriously disabled veteran son, a woman whose husband died shortly after the storm, another woman struggling with stage 4 cancer and the medical visits required while her home was unlivable, and a minister who had a heart attack while repairing the flood-damaged home he bought as a retirement place. We even cleaned up a church to permanently convert it to a storm relief center because the flooding put them out of business, and the county and the Red Cross needed a permanent recovery center in that low-lying area. Water invaded these homes, followed quickly by dangerous mold, making the houses unlivable. Yet some people had nowhere to go, so they stayed put for months without electricity and heat. Then there's the impact on the volunteers and the first responders. On one of our visits, a volunteer broke his hand when a ladder fell out from under him. Others suffered from mold inhalation and infectious cuts. Like at the World Trade Center, first responders will suffer PTSD and other chronic illnesses until they pass on. You can mitigate some of this terrible human suffering by taking all legal action to assure that Duke Energy creates and implements a much more aggressive energy plan consistent with the best available science and engineering, and also consider steps to set the stage to assure that Duke Energy pays for this financial and other harm it is now doing knowingly. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Mr. Presley, thank you very much for sharing that with us this evening. We appreciate it. Are there questions that anyone wants to ask Mr. Presley? If not, then thank you, sir, again for appearing this evening.
Thank you.
Josie, who do we have next?
Our next person is Gail Powell.
All right, Ms. Powell, are you there? Ms. Powell? Mr. McCoy, do we have Ms. Powell?
Hello?
Ms. Powell? Is that you?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, it is.
We can hear you now. That's fine. Thank you. Let's give you the oath. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, to the best of my ability.
Thank you very much. Mr. Josie, proceed.
Yes. Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider?
Gail Powell, 6516 Deerview Drive, Raleigh, North Carolina, and my provider is Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you. You may give your statement.
I'm a board member of Interfaith Creation Care of the Triangle, and today I speak on behalf of future generations and all life on Earth. There are many types of costs associated with the proposed Duke Energy IRP besides the cost of electricity. These include the costs associated with failure to urgently and dramatically address climate change. I will attempt to describe scenarios that North Carolina could very well face by the end of this century if the North Carolina Utility Commission and Duke Energy fail to boldly and urgently move forward to clean energy sources. The flawed 6 options proposed by Duke will contribute to such a world. The 2018 climate data from the IPCC report indicate that there will be a 4 to 9 degree Fahrenheit increase in temperature by 2100. The scenarios that I describe here today are based on a scenario of 9 degrees Fahrenheit temperature rise, a scenario where we fail to take a substantial action to address climate change now. The scenarios I describe in the next few minutes were taken from publications and presentations made by North Carolina climate scientists. Duke Energy's proposed IRP is an excellent example of failing to take substantial action to address climate change. Should we aggressively address climate change immediately, it is highly likely that we can substantially reduce these projected outcomes. The North Carolina Utility Commission has the power to ensure that Duke Energy Carolinas and Duke Energy Progress take substantial action on climate change. These scenarios assume a moderate rate of polar ice melting. However, current evidence suggests a trend for more rapid melting, which will create more rapid, drastic, and expensive outcomes to occur sooner. Think about your children and grandchildren and the children of our North Carolina communities as you hear this scenario. Think about the exorbitant costs associated with the impact of unmitigated climate change in our state. Many parts of the Outer Banks will be routinely submerged and severely eroded by storms. Coastal towns could be routinely flooded twice daily at high tide. Flooding will be in more coastal communities located near rivers and estuaries. Coastal groundwater will be contaminated by saltwater intrusion. All of these scenarios and their associated expenses and losses will be caused by our continued reliance on fossil fuels. Duke Energy must rapidly move to cleaner, cheaper, renewable energy. Picture in North Carolina where larger, wetter, more frequent hurricanes are the norm. Roads and buildings will become impossible to maintain on our Outer Banks. Expenses associated with these efforts will be exorbitant. The economic impact on tourism and jobs will be tremendous. In Central North Carolina, it will frequently be too hot for children to play outside. Migrant workers, after laboring in temperatures above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, will sleep at night in temperatures that are well into the 80s. The current trend for warmer nights in North Carolina will become a health threat for the homeless, for migrant workers, and other laborers. Other public health risks also exist. Mosquito-transmitted diseases such as dengue fever and Zika virus are likely in North Carolina due to warmer weather and growing populations of the mosquito Aedes aegypti. Urban heat islands such as Raleigh will experience even stronger warming. The average North Carolina temperature will be 10 degrees Fahrenheit higher than the average temperature was in the 1970s. North Carolina will experience 30 days per year with a heat index greater than 100 degrees Fahrenheit versus the historical average of 7 days. More frequent, intense rains will dissolve and spread pollutants, nutrients, and sediments that will contaminate our rivers and groundwater and erode our topsoil. Warmer water temperatures will promote more rapid microbial growth and reduce water quality of lakes and rivers and estuaries. Warmer water temperatures will increase toxic algae blooms, creating a risk to humans and wildlife. Millions of people, largely from South Florida and other coastal areas, and even Central America, will become a stream of climate refugees moving to higher ground. Central North Carolina's infrastructure will be strained to meet the demand of many refugees. We will need to become more conservative in our use of water and other resources to ensure that our water supply can meet the demand of our rapidly growing population. I will now switch my focus to some of the flaws in Duke's IRP. Duke's current IRP fails to address climate change and fails to reduce taxpayer energy burdens on the poor. Duke is the #2 source of carbon pollution from the U.S. utility sector, emitting 100 million tons of CO2 annually. They can and should do better. Duke's estimates for the cost of continued use of fossil fuels fails to adequately estimate the true cost of anticipated carbon taxes. Duke overinflates true energy costs in their IRP by limiting the use of clean energy sources, which are far less expensive.
Ms. Powell, if you can wrap up with a sentence or two, let's do that.
Okay, thank you. We asked that the North Carolina Utilities Commission not approve Duke's proposed IRP. Instead, we asked that they demand that Duke submit an IRP that supports the North Carolina and Biden plans for addressing climate change.
Ms. Powell, thank you very much. If you've got additional material that you weren't able to get in, of course, I remind you again that you're free to file that, a written statement with that additional material with the commission clerk, and it will become part of this record as well. Are there any questions from Ms. Powell? All right, I don't see any questions. So, Mr. Josie, let's take the next witness then, please.
Okay. Next witness is Jane Yokoyama.
All right, Ms. Yokoyama, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Right, we can hear you fine. So let's swear you in. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you will give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, to my best ability.
That's fine. Thank you. Mr. Josie, proceed.
Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider?
My name is Jane Yokoyama. I live at 387 Pearson Drive in Asheville, North Carolina, and I believe my energy provider is Dominion through Duke.
Okay, thank you. You can provide your statement now.
Thank you. First, thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns about Duke's integrated resource plan. I also want to say I've been listening to the testimony from the very beginning today, and I hope the commission recognizes how all of us who are speaking with passion from our hearts. We have really done our research to look at the facts about this and are very concerned about this plan. My husband and I are Duke ratepayers, and my husband does own stock in Duke. I am surprised Duke plans to use coal until 2049 and to build up to 13 natural gas plants. This goes against North Carolina's climate goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and entirely eliminate fossil fuels by 2050. In the city of Asheville, where I live, we've declared a climate change as an emergency and have a goal to power all municipal operations with renewable energy by 2030. Buncombe County has a community-wide goal of having the entire county powered by renewable energy by 2042. As you probably know, there are other North Carolina cities and counties that also recognize the need to reduce our carbon footprint and have clean energy goals that rely on the removal of fossil fuels. From a climate and health perspective, why would Duke want to continue its dubious distinction of being the largest climate polluter in the state? Future natural gas plants through fracking will release tremendous amounts of the potent greenhouse gas methane. There are also the potential dangers of chemicals used to extract the natural gas, as well as the pollution of the air and groundwater with carcinogenic substances such as benzene. The outdated coal burning plants not only release carbon dioxide, but also release soot, sulfur dioxide, and heavy metals into the air. Coal plants also discharge wastewater containing mercury and arsenic. Toxic coal ash has polluted drinking water. This pollution impacts the health of all North Carolinians, but especially low-income communities and people of color who live near those sites. From an economic perspective, why would Duke invest in outdated and costly sources of energy production? The cost of maintaining current coal plants as well as constructing new gas plants are passed on to us, the ratepayers. In this state, solar is already less expensive than coal. And so as solar and wind energy production and storage become less expensive, these natural gas plants will become obsolete. Our family has already recognized the value of solar energy and purchased solar panels for our home. We also live in an energy efficient house and drive hybrid cars. This is the right thing for us to do, and it's the right thing for our planet. I want Duke to retire their coal plants no later than 2030 and commit to solar and other clean energy sources for the future. As a retired science educator, I see how little time there is left before our current reliance on fossil fuels will result in irreversible climate change and its catastrophic results. We, including Duke, should not be part of the problem, but part of the solution. Thank you for taking my testimony, and I sincerely hope you listen to everyone who's speaking today and in the future about how much we care about our environment and how we want Duke to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yokoyama, for giving up your time this evening and sharing with us your views. You can be sure that we are listening very intently to all of our speakers this evening. So thank you for coming. Are there any questions for Ms. Yokoyama? All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us. Mr. Josie, I want to check with you because I'm always mindful of making sure our court reporter has an adequate chance to rest her fingers. How many more callers do we have with us?
It looks like we have 7 callers that are listed, 8, excuse me, and we have 3 unidentified callers that we could try to identify during a break, or we could just wait until the end. And
Ms. Mitchell, how are you doing? Would you like a break right about now? I tell you what, let's do. Let's do this. Let's break it. My clock shows that it's 7:38 right now. Let's break until 7:45. Give Mr. Josie and Mr. McCoy a chance to see if they can identify those other 3 callers and see if they're on our list of registered speakers, so we know whether we've got them with us or not. And Ms. Mitchell, that'll give you a chance to stretch and rest your hands, and we'll come back at 7:45. Please turn off your video and put your audio on mute while we're on break. Thank you.
Hello, is this Don McCurry? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you please identify yourself?
Jeffrey Becker.
Mitchell, you good to go? Great. Okay, let's see if we can find Mr. Josie. Are you?
I'm here.
Okay, what can you report?
Okay, we only had one unidentified caller by the time we started the break, and it is caller number 4, Jeffrey Becker. So I'd like to start with him.
We skipped with Mr. Mr. Becker because he wasn't with us then.
Yep.
But since he's the next in order, or actually he was earlier in order, well, let's go back and pick up with him, and let's call Jeffrey Becker. Mr. Becker, are you there? Mr. McCoy, can we get him unmuted?
I am here.
Great, Mr. Becker. Thank you. We're sorry we missed you earlier. Let's give you the oath, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, to the best of my ability.
That's great. Thank you. Mr. Josie, proceed.
Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider for the record?
Yes, sure. Jeffrey Becker. My address is 3225 Sunbright Lane in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my electricity provider is Duke Energy Progress.
Okay, thank you. You can provide your statement.
Thank you so much, members of the commission. Thank you for being the ears that we need to really express our deep concerns. I want to take a little bit of a different tack tonight. I have 2 autistic children. I'm a single parent. Quentin, who has mild autism, and Alexandra, whose autism is moderate to severe. With autistic kids, thinking tends to be all or nothing, kind of black and white. Now, all kids are like that to some extent, but autistic kids are especially prone to that kind of black and white thinking. So I spend a lot of time explaining the grays in life, especially to Quentin. But I have to say that with this IRP from Duke, it's really hard to explain to them the grays of the things that are going wrong with this. I want to just sort of look at this through the lens of house rules. Some rules for an autistic household are, for example, no lying. Now, Duke will be building new gas plants through 2035. That's more carbon dioxide in the air. And they've said that solar battery storage costs 4 times that of gas. Well, one of the things that we do in my household is we go shopping and we shop around in comparison costs, and battery storage costs, it's 70% lower between 2015 and 2018, and solar costs have gone down 82% in 2010. So in our house, fudging numbers is really lying, and that's not a good sign. Another rule that we have is no slacking. Duke wants to reduce carbon emissions by 50% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. But there's all kinds of energy companies doing much better than that. A couple of examples: Xcel Energy, 90% of 2005 levels by 2030. WEC Energy Group, 70% of 2005 levels by 2030. we're not asking Duke to be a trailblazer. We're actually just asking them to get on board. There is one house rule in our house that I would like to change. That is, don't try to keep up with the Joneses. But in this case, I would say definitely do try to keep up with the Joneses, because if you consider Idaho, which is, pretty conservative state, 76% of their electricity generation comes from renewables. I only bring all this up because if a house is a public trust and you break multiple rules of the public trust, I think the appropriate discipline should probably be a reset, and I think rejecting this IRP might be the best reset, to do. It's not a very gray issue. I just want to talk quickly about climate change from an autistic child's point of view. Alexandra calls COVID the sickness, and she wants a party when it's all over. But there's really no end to climate change in her lifetime. It just depends on how bad it will get. And some of the things that she's going to have to face are extinctions. Kids love animals. For autistic kids, they're especially important because depictions of animals can help show autistic kids emotions, which is very vital to their social interactions. There may be days at autism camp where they have to go indoors because the heat index is too high. Blackouts and brownouts from grid failures, from the heat and precipitation that are really scary to an autistic child, and housing damage in shelters from things like stronger hurricanes or more frequent floods. Just picture an autistic child in a shelter. The amount of noise, no structure, the constant stimulation, multiple interactions with people, it's all just a nightmare. And I'm presenting this particular point of view because it doesn't get presented very often. I just wouldn't wish any of this on any of our children. And in my case, my children with disabilities, with autism, I wouldn't want to wish, Duke's IRP and what it will bring, to them in their lifetime. So what comes out of your house affects your neighborhood because we're all so interconnected. And Duke affects North Carolina and the world. So we need an IRP that retires coal-fired plants by 2030, no new gas-fired plants. We need to increase the percentage of renewables, and we need an IRP that just goes by the guiding science. It's out there. It's not a new thing. I do want to thank the Commission again for being our listening ears, and that's the end of my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. We're glad we were able to catch you this evening and get you back in line here. So we appreciate your statement this evening. Are there any questions from anyone for Mr. Becker? All right. Thank you again for being with us this evening, Mr. Becker. Mr. Josie,
Yes,
next witness.
We'll jump back down to number 24, which is Hope Taylor.
I'm
All
here.
right. Ms. Taylor, we can hear you. So let's get you sworn, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Josie?
Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider for the record?
I'm Hope Taylor, residing at 1588 Jack Clement Road, Stem, North Carolina, where I'm a customer of Duke Energy Progress. At the nonprofit Clean Water for North Carolina, located at 3325 Durham Chapel Hill Boulevard in Durham, we are a customer of Duke Energy Carolinas.
Thank you. You can provide your statement.
As a science-based environmental justice organization that has worked for fair and affordable rates and to prevent the worst impacts of coal-fired power plants and the worst effects of climate change, and which has proposed an independently administered energy efficiency administrator for our state, Clean Water for North Carolina is spectacularly disappointed by the IRP scenarios filed by Duke, including allowing the continued operation of coal-fired power plants. This completely ignores the continuing impacts of coal ash, a completely foreseeable waste about which Duke should have taken action decades ago, and the cleanup for which shareholders should have been required to take most of the financial responsibility, as well as ignoring the highest carbon dioxide emissions per unit electrical energy generated. The continuing climate-changing emissions from these plants would mandate shutting all coal-fired power plants, many operating with low capacity factors at this time, at considerable expense for ratepayers within the next 2 to 3 years,
rather than keeping them operating for many years to come. The plan to build new gas-powered generating facilities in this time of urgently needed climate action is clearly in contempt of urgently needed climate action. Given the methane releases that will be contributed both by fugitive emissions from supply pipelines as well as from equipment at the power plants themselves. Any new investments in fossil fuel generation and infrastructure will soon become stranded assets, as Duke and Dominion belatedly realized in June of last year when they shut down the Atlantic Coast Pipeline project. And if such investments are approved, ratepayers would be forced to pay for them in addition to ill-gotten profits at their own expense. One impact of fossil fuel and nuclear power plants is that they're continuing excessive thermal impacts on the hundreds of millions of gallons of the public's waters that are withdrawn every day and returned to rivers and reservoirs hot enough to impair aquatic biological systems and even to evaporate tens of millions of gallons of our waters every day. This is an injustice to our ecosystems and to downstream water users that provisions of the Clean Water Act should have prevented. Excuse me, I just lost my place there for a minute. So we are calling for the diminished use of both of these kinds of resources, energy generating facilities, and we have reported these thermal impacts to the EPA Office of Inspector General and gotten a report in return that Region 4 is not adequately supervising variances in North Carolina. We all know that monopoly utilities are allowed profits as a percent of their approved expenditures so that they will always choose to make the highest possible capital expenditures, which means building expensive new power plants and infrastructure, knowing that they can maximize those profits. The Utilities Commission must disapprove this IRP and demand more responsible planning for the ratepayers, the environment of North Carolina, and the global environment. Finally, Duke has shown unwillingness to implement efficiency measures or renewable energy, either in generating facilities or at point of use, at more than the tragically low expectations required by the renewable and energy efficiency provisions of 2007 legislation. The Commission must require implementation of both efficiency at immediately higher rates and increasing by over 1% per year, and aggressively increase the portfolio of renewable energy and storage in order to have a prayer of meeting North Carolina's expectations of carbon net zero economy by 2050, much less the expectation of most states to achieve carbon-free electrical generation by 2030. The North Carolina Utilities Commission must disapprove the filed IRP, which fails both the test of least cost and equitable energy generation and of environmental justice and climate protection. And it must demonstrate the commitment to the public and the public interest, both in terms of keeping rates affordable and fair and in protecting the health and environment of North Carolina and climate stability for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. We appreciate your coming tonight and participating. Are there questions for Ms. Taylor? From the Commissioner or from the parties? If not, Ms. Taylor, again, thank you. Mr. Josie, I'm going to call your next witness.
Our next witness is Elizabeth Pape.
Ms. Pape, are you
Hello?
there? Yes,
I
we can
am.
hear you. We can hear you. Let me give you the oath, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, to the best of my ability. And to save time, my name is Elizabeth Pape. I live at 10 Morning Dew Drive in Woodfin, North Carolina, and my provider is Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you for your efficiency.
You're welcome. I've been striking paragraphs out, so this should go quickly because many people have said what I would have said. Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to talk. And now for a little bit of personal history. 5 years ago, when Duke was sounding alarms about needing to build a peaker plant in western North Carolina, my husband, my late husband, and I called Sundance to install solar panels on our roof to reduce a little pressure off the system.
A year and a half ago, I convinced 2 of my neighbors to do the same. Then a third neighbor installed his own system, having heard about our success. This means that 40% of all the homeowners in my neighborhood have gone solar. An irony of ironies, Duke wants to build not 1, but 13 frac gas plants. Honestly, are you kidding me? I'm $26,000 out and they won't invest in solar? GM, Ford, and Volvo will be building only EV cars in 5 or 10 years. Does Duke really think it's a good idea to build more gas-powered plants over 15 years? Think again. Stop Duke from investing in antiquated technologies that cost the customers more and are environmentally damaging by both extracting and burning the fuel. If old women like me think it's a good, sound investment to switch to solar, what do you suppose our kids and grandchildren think? Send Duke back to the drawing board and to do something that benefits Duke's customers and their stockholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pape. Are there any questions from commissioners or from the parties? Ms. Pape, thank you for your patience and bearing with us this evening. We appreciate your participating. Mr.
Thank
Josie?
you for listening. Good night.
Good night. You may call your next witness.
Eric Stein.
All right,
Yes,
Mr. Stein,
yes.
Are you there? Great.
Yes,
Great.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Let's give you the oath. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, to the best of my ability.
That's great. Thank you. Mr. Josie?
Could you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider for the record?
My name is Eric Stein. I'm at 900 Vista Lake Drive, Candler, North Carolina, 28715, and I'm with Duke Energy Progress.
Thank you. You can provide your statement.
Sounds great. Well, I want to thank the North Carolina Utilities Commission this evening. It's a great opportunity for public input with stakeholders and residents of North Carolina. Duke Energy must immediately retire the remaining coal plants if we want Roy Cooper's Clean Energy Plan, Executive Order 80, to be a success. We must reduce greenhouse gas emissions 70% below 2005 levels by 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 so we can avoid continuous dangerous ramifications of climate change. In order to achieve Biden's goal of having 100% of our electricity powered by renewable energy sources by 2035, we would have to phase out all fossil fuel sources. We need to keep global temperatures from rising 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees Celsius compared with pre-industrial levels if we want to be in line with the Paris Accords and prevent catastrophic consequences. Duke's reliance on gas combustion facilitates the continual release of carbon dioxide into the air, as we discussed, and releases extremely potent methane during fracking. We must phase this out, like I said, if we want North Carolina to succeed in its clean energy goal and its climate goals, and for Duke's energy goals, that they stated earlier. Burning fossil fuels will increase respiratory health problems for North Carolina residents, especially for low-income communities and minority communities. And North Carolina is actually 4th in the country for hospital admissions, heart attacks, and mortality from coal pollution. Coal burning releases dangerous levels of soot, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, heavy metals, and wastewater from coal operations that discharge all of this into our lakes and waters and streams. Coal ash also has been poisoning our drinking water sources. This must change as soon as possible. Retiring aging coal plants will save customers billions of dollars over the next decade. Solar is the most cost-effective energy source, and a recent study from Energy Innovation illustrated that North Carolina could boost its renewable energy to 66% by 2035, while reducing costs for ratepayers. Solar energy's cost per kilowatt hour fell 82% in a decade and is still decreasing. Our state is the second state in the country after California for installed solar capacity, for goodness sakes. We need to tap into this free energy resource that the sun gives us. We also should invest in wind. I mean, in addition, North Carolina ranks first among Atlantic states for offshore wind potential. The Kitty Hawk offshore wind project is already in development. And cities and counties across North Carolina, such as Wake County, Buncombe County, where I am, Orange County, Durham, and many others have already set strong renewable energy goals and climate goals. And as we discussed earlier, Asheville has already declared a climate emergency with new policies. That's the first in North Carolina to do so. Just want to say on a personal note, my grandfather was a coal miner for 44 years in Western Pennsylvania. Many years ago, he's one of the hardest workers I've ever met. He was a foreman in the mine, and during his time there, he saw the worst of what coal power could actually do to people. He saw the horror of black lung disease among the people he worked with. Luckily, he didn't get it, but many of his coworkers got it and suffered because of that. He saw how destructive this was, and after he retired, he honestly wished he could work in the renewable energy industry, but it wasn't available at the time when he was working. He's not alive right now, but if he were alive today, he would advocate for 100% renewable energy for all of America and in North Carolina if he were here today. He told me this back when he was in his 80s, before 2007. Duke Energy has the power and resources to rapidly shift to a 100% renewable energy goal and clean energy future, and we can accelerate our efforts. I asked the commissioners to hold Duke Energy accountable and dramatically speed up our transition to clean energy. We must act with a sense of urgency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stein, for your statement this evening. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Stein? If not, sir, again, thank you. You may stay with us or go about your business this evening. We appreciate your being with us. Mr. Josie?
Thank you.
Who do you have next?
Denise Frizzell.
All right, Ms. Frizzell, are you there?
Yes.
Great. Let's give you the oath, please. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Josie, proceed.
Yes, can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider for the record?
Denise Frizzell, 55 Fortunes Ridge Drive, Durham, and I believe it's Duke Energy Carolinas.
Thank you. You may give your statement.
Yes, first I'd like to thank members of the Commission and Duke Energy for their contributions to the generation and distribution of electricity that powers our lives, something I and I think others often take for granted. Having said that, though, it also appears that Duke officials are taking climate stability, breathable air, clean water, and an overall healthy planet Earth for granted, as if our shared life support system will always be there to maintain the company's fossil fuel dependent bottom line. I would like to see Duke leaders look our children in the eyes and tell them that their business as usual approach represented in this latest IRP is sane, responsible, just, and sustainable in the face of humanity's climate and other ecological and social crises. As a person of faith, I would like to highlight American biblical scholar and theologian Walter Wink's seminal work on the powers, in which he proposed that corporations and governments are entities whose sole purpose is to serve the general welfare. And when they refuse to do so, their spirit becomes diseased or, quote, demonic. He wrote in his book, The Powers That Be, which I highly recommend, quote, I had never been able to take demons seriously. The idea that fallen spirits possess people seemed superstitious. But if the demonic is produced when the spirit of an institution turns its back on its divine vocation, then I could not only believe in the demonic, I could point to its presence in everyday life. And if the demonic arises when a spirit deviates from its calling, then social change does not depend on casting out the demon, but recalling its spirit to its divine task, end quote. So instead of using the rest of my time on specific technical arguments, I would like to recall the collective spirit of Duke Energy and the Commission, which includes not only current company leaders and commissioners, to boldly lead in and through this ILP, not hinder or lag behind in the great work of transitioning our electrical grid to one that is truly just and sustainable, so that current and future generations can thrive. Because after all, as stated on the company's website, quote, energy is about more than keeping the lights on. Thank you all and blessings to you all. And may you have the courage, the wisdom, and compassion to put the general welfare over greed and profits by rejecting this IRP and putting forth one that better represents the higher spirit of Duke Energy and North Carolina. I am complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frisell, for your statement this evening. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Frisell? Okay, again, thank you very much for staying with us this evening and for your statement. We appreciate it. Mr. Josie?
Yes, our next witness is Hope Bleeker.
All right, Ms. Bleeker, can you hear me okay?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
You're just fine. So let's give you the oath. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Mr. Josie?
Will you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider for the record?
Yes, thank you. I'm at 1341 US 64-74A in Rutherfordton, North Carolina. My provider is Duke Energy Carolinas, I believe.
Okay, thank you. You may give your statement.
Thank you. I'm a 24-year career city planner with a focus on alternative transportation. I wanted to speak with you tonight to thank you so much for your role in public service and also to share with you my thoughts on the IRP. Throughout my career, I've worked with municipal clients, largely in the arena of bus transit logistics and in engineering capacities as an environmental justice planner, where I focused on LEED certified facilities that are also capable of running off-grid with power disconnected from natural gas. I'd like you to boldly lead our world to use only battery power, wind, and solar as a power source, period. My husband and I lost our home due to wrecked plumbing and foundation damage as a result of fracking, which occurred in Arbalise, Colorado, when I was the Director of Transportation in Durango, Colorado. Arbalise is a rural area located in the southern region of Colorado near Durango, which is fracked by the Southern Ute Indian tribe. Throughout the United States, pipelines and flare stacks are routinely located beneath poor and lower middle income communities, and they're also located all over rural parts of America. Energy companies are well aware that fracking is toxic, and Duke also knows that leaked methane into water sources, when it is either inhaled or consumed in food, results in numerous types of environmental cancer. And in many cases, it sabotages prenatal development as well. So in addition to the harmful practices of combusting methane, fracking in North America is driving us to the global climate crisis, as you've heard. I'll strike that paragraph because numerous speakers have talked about that. But I want to remind you that the best scientists in the world concur that a 2.7 rate of methane leakage is worse than the other enemy, which is coal. So there's no way to fix fracking leaks that are killing the environment. I mean, the practice requires leakage, and changing or modifying the way that it's done is just a choice between two different evils. There's always something that's going to happen that's an adverse outcome. So for you decision makers this evening, I'd really like to see you tell Duke and other energy companies across North Carolina that there's one way forward, and that's to stop using coal-powered infrastructure or natural gas and focus on solarizing and doing clean energy with batteries only. I really have faith in my work and in my reading that since Nikola Tesla provided that free energy is a reality, one day soon we really will stop using utility companies and we will have batteries which will be capable of powering our own individual homes off grid. I'm working toward that goal personally now. But I really felt compelled to call you today just to remind you about these potential health hazards and the numerous adverse outcomes that will come if you do not stop Duke from creating energy out of fossil fuels. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bleeker. Are there any questions for Ms. Bleeker this evening? From anyone? If not, Ms. Bleeker, thank you again for your statement this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and thank you all very much for your public service. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Josie, who's next?
Next is caller 30, Emily Keel.
All right, Ms. Keel, can you hear me okay?
I can. I am right here.
That's great. Let's get you sworn in then. Do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, yes. Okay.
Great. Mr. Josie, continue.
Yes. Can you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider for the record?
Yes, I am Emily Keel. I am from Robertsonville in Martin County, and my Duke supplies energy to Electric Cities, which is part of Martin County. So I'd like to thank the Utilities Commission for offering this chance. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say you may provide your statement.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for allowing me the chance to do that and for allowing all of us to speak about the energy plan. For me, it was quite a shock to hear that Duke proposed to build possibly 30 additional frac gas plants, actually investing more in them than in renewable energy production, completely flying in the face of the evidence of our rapid slide into irreversible climate catastrophe. It is a shameful fact that Duke has proposed the most fracked gas plants and the least renewables of any energy sources in the nation. And more gas plants means, of course, as others have said, more pipelines, more leaks, more endangered water supplies, more methane with its powerful effect on climate warming. And of course, if they're given the ability to construct these gas plants and they are later removed from service by appropriately restrictive laws, Duke will still get a charge to recover the cost. Maybe that suits them just fine. I personally feel like that is public theft, and it feels like someone's holding a knife to our throats. We demand that Duke commit to no new gas. My community has a large number of low-income citizens for whom paying the utility bill is such a burden. Offering some home energy efficiency programs, weatherization, or cost-saving community solar plans could be transformative for many of these people. That would be a remarkable undertaking by the energy company to decrease the burden on many people. In the evaluation that I've seen of their IRP, there's an appalling lack of accuracy in the estimates that Duke has reported for the cost of storage of solar energy versus gas-fired power plants. The independent engineers that have given a thought to this and evaluated have given much lower estimates for storage, which will cause none of the water or air pollution or coal residue that have resulted from Duke's preferred energy pursuits. They're saying that it will lower CO2 emissions by using gas instead of coal, but that will actually lower CO2 and raise methane, which, as many have said tonight, is worse, and depending on leakage, could be even worse for our climate crisis. And I just want to echo the previous comments about Duke's failure to come close to meeting the state's climate goals and its continued reliance on so much fossil fuel. So we call on Duke to commit to a sustainable and just energy future, that the company retire coal and replace harmful fossil fuel infrastructure with renewables. And to members of the Utility Commission, we ask, please, for the safety and the health of our people, reject these poorly constructed IRPs. Your decision on this matter is so important, crucial to our safety and well-being, and we beg you to require more accuracy and more consideration of the future of our air, water, and soil. Thank you for the time you have allowed me to speak and for your taking the time to evaluate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Keel. Thank you for your statement this evening. Are there questions for Ms. Keel? I don't see any, so we'll release you to stay and continue to watch or go about your business this evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Josie, who's next?
Yes. We have Dean Donnelly, and I believe this is our last witness.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Donnelly, are you there?
Yes, this is Mrs. Donnelly, Nancy Donnelly.
I apologize. You caught me. Dean is one of those names that can play both ways, so I'm
Go
sorry.
either way, right.
That's right. Well, thank you, Ms. Donnelly. Then do you solemnly and sincerely affirm that the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do so affirm that, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Josie?
Will you please provide your name, address, and electricity provider for the record?
Yes, my name is Nancy Donnelly. I live at 81 Pine Ridge Drive in Whispering Pines, North Carolina.
All right, thank you. You may give your statement.
Okay, and I am a customer of Duke Progress Energy. We've lived here in North Carolina for 21 years. First, I would like to say that I am not a scientist, but I do believe in science with a capital S, and science tells me that our planet is in big trouble, and we can see that here in North Carolina with our own eyes, the mounting evidence of the dangers of climate change with rising temperatures and storms that have been referred to, fires and flooding. I do know enough that we have to realize we have to reduce our carbon footprints, and I try to do that with small personal decisions like reducing my use of plastic, etc. But we really need the help now of government and corporations. I've always supported lawmakers who are environmentally friendly and the ones who acknowledge the urgency of the climate crisis and who have plans to address it, like Governor Cooper's executive order for transitioning to a clean energy economy, and of course, President Biden's policies and proposals. So when I heard that my energy company was presenting its integrated resource plan for North Carolina for the next 15 years, I was really eager to read it with hopes that Duke Energy and our state could lead the way toward a clean energy economy. So please imagine my disappointment when I saw that instead of transitioning to clean power, they were going backwards by planning on building many more dirty gas plants to pollute our environment. So I felt like I had to be here to voice my opposition to Duke's plans. This coming few years are so critical to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. I don't see really any way possible that Duke's plans can enable us to limit the warming of the planet. They must eliminate coal, of course, and the fossil fuel infrastructure. As a company acting in the public interest, Duke Energy also should end all political spending, funding their lobbyists and the regulators of their monopoly. We can do so much better than this in North Carolina. On a more encouraging note, I was pleasantly surprised to read in Sunday's paper that my hometown where I grew up, Orlando, Florida, was mentioned in an Earth Day article as being a rock star leader in solar power. The city has solar co-ops for bulk pricing on home solar systems and a loan fund for low-income communities to help with their home improvements like water heaters and attic fans. Solar powers more than 10% of that city's municipal electricity demand. For our whole state, Duke's energy plan gets only 5% of its electricity from renewables. And the national average now of all states is more than 20%. Duke Energy, please go back to the drawing table and come up with a plan that makes us a climate resilient state. Like everyone else who's spoken here, I want a better future for our grandchildren and their future children. A safe, clean, healthy world with a sustainable environment. As the young folks say, there is no planet B. Thank you for letting me have this time to voice my opinion on this.
And thank you, Ms. Donnelly, for your patience in staying with us this evening and making your statement. Do commissioners or the parties have any questions for Ms. Donnelly? Okay, again, thank you, Ms. Donnelly, for being with us this evening.
And thanks for letting me give my testimony. Thank you.
Quite welcome. Mr. Josie, do we have anyone else who's registered?
No, sir. That was the last witness who is on the line who has not spoken.
All right. Well, that's great. Well, that will bring us to the point where we're going to recess for the hearing, this hearing for the evening. Let me remind those of you who are following us on YouTube that the next session of this public hearing will be on Wednesday, May the 5th. Again, we'll begin at 6 p.m. And the link to the YouTube video for that session is the same. It will be on the Commission's website. So again, thanks to everyone who participated this evening. Thanks to all our callers and our speakers and to all of our staff. And with that, we will conclude for the evening. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.